My wife told me I can't keep leaving the car parts in the kitchen. Yes, that was a fuel cell that we're using for the rear-wheel drive V8 Prelude, and I'm super excited. This number behind me is way off. That's better. So what's been going on lately, and what are we doing today? First off, there's a bunch of comments that we're going to be adding to this board because there's been so many of you guys showing love, so don't miss out. Next week we'll be doing that. Today we will be bolting this down and getting everything welded that needs to be done so that this is all secure and ready to go. In last week's video, we painted the engine bay, and I didn't really get a chance to really show you guys what it looks like. There it is, guys. Guys, I'm super happy with how this came out. It looks really, really good, and it took a long time and a lot of hard work, so it was all worth it. Now the engine. Yeah, so about the engine. The block was here, but I was getting some more work done to it, and the shop needed the block to get some other things in order. So I gave them the block, and now they have most of the parts, and we're just waiting to see what's gonna happen. I asked them to give me a quote to build me a short block because then it can get done in a much quicker time. And they're also working on the crank, so when all that's done, hopefully we can start building an engine. I know I keep telling you guys that we're gonna be working on this engine, but honestly, I'm telling you guys what I am going through, what I know. I'm not making any of this up. This is just what's been happening. Things go a little bit longer than expected sometimes. Anyways, guys, let's get the fuel cell done because we're not gonna let that hold us up. We're still gonna make progress on the car. So because the car's rear wheel drive, there was a giant hole here that I cut out to work on the rear axle. A couple weeks ago, I made this big plate to go in the trunk to hold the fuel cell and the battery. So I gotta go around and weld that plate down, and then we can focus on bolting the fuel cell in. Well guys, I was all set up so that when I came home from work today that I would immediately start welding. But as you can see, it is, well, you may not be able to see, but it's snowing like crazy right now. And normally when I weld, I like to have the car near the door and have the door open because of the fumes. But I don't think it's wise to do that right now. So rather than welding that plate together, I'm gonna get the holes drilled in that plate so that everything's ready to go. And I can bolt it in today, but I'm gonna have to take it apart when I go to weld it. But I can do that on my own time. You guys will get the idea. All right, guys, now before we get started, I wanna go over a couple things. First off, I don't claim to be an expert in anything that I do, but there's a few things that I do know about this, and I'm gonna let you guys know. When we install this fuel cell, we're gonna make sure that the fuel lines are facing the back. The premise behind this is that when the car goes forward, the fuel goes back. Nowadays, most fuel tanks in general have baffle systems to prevent fuel from flopping all over the place and leaving empty voids of no gas. Because if you did have that, then your fuel pump could starve and you could burn out the motor. We're not gonna get to this stuff in this video, but I'm gonna go over it anyway. This fuel pump is rated for more horsepower than what I expect to make. This fuel pump is rated for more than what I expect to make. And I'm talking about horsepower. The reason I want a fuel pump that can put out more horsepower than what I expect, it's because fuel pumps have a flow rate, and that determines how much pressure you're gonna have. If it's not high enough, then you're screwed. But if it's too high, you can regulate it. The other thing you wanna do is you wanna make sure you have fuel filters. Now this one's a 100 micron fuel filter. Typically you wanna make sure you have 2 fuel filters. The 100 micron is gonna go in front of my fuel pump, and then I'm gonna have another one that's a 10 micron go after the fuel pump. And that's gonna make sure that nothing gets through and gets to the engine. Also, anytime you're gonna have fuel lines going through any passageway like metal or whatever it may be, you wanna make sure you use rubber grommets. That's a very big thing. Anyways, guys, let's get into it. So what I'm gonna do next is cut this unistrut to the right length, and that's gonna go from one side to the other, and I'm gonna have 2 of them. The reason for that is that this is slightly elevated, and I think that the purpose was that this could be mounted and then you should cut a hole for this to be underneath. But it doesn't work out because as I spin these fittings, it would hit whatever the surface is. So really, it's no big deal. I'm just gonna raise it up with some unistrut, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about shortly. So the idea is that it's gonna be something like this. So you can see that I have it sitting on the unistrut. You can actually see it better from this side here. So all I gotta do is mark the unistrut where I want it to be bolted into the plate, and then I'll show you guys how I'm gonna fasten this down to the unistrut. Because of the supports that I have here and here, I'm gonna be doing the bolts somewhere in the middle. It's not as far as I would have liked it to be, but honestly, it won't matter that much. I couldn't tighten it by myself because I couldn't reach under the car while reaching in the trunk at the same time. So I'm just doing it like this. So now I can take these spring nuts and place them close to where I think they're gonna be going. And then when the fuel cell sits on top, I just bolt right into that. And just like that, all I gotta do is thread these in and we're done. And just like that, guys, the fuel cell is officially installed. Guys, by the time this video goes up, we're gonna be very, very close to that 3,000 subscriber mark. And I just wanna say thank you because it's absolutely crazy. And if you're not already following my Instagram, I'm trying to grow there as well. I'm gonna link that in my description. Please go over there because you'll see some stuff that I may not be posting in my YouTube videos. And I know I keep talking about the engine, but I swear I'm working as hard as I can and I'm doing everything that I can do about it. But most of it's out of my hands, so I can't really worry too much. I'm not gonna let that stop me though. Even if I'm making small progress on this car, we're still moving forward and that's all that matters. I realize that the deadline that I talked about is right around the corner and I'm not gonna stop until this car is done. I'm not even gonna lie, sometimes when I read the comments, it inspires me to work even harder and it gets me excited. So if you wanna help me get this car on the road, leave a nice comment for me to read and we will see you guys in the next one.